Hi, my name is Nate Garcia. I'm a producer and director, and I own Memory Palace. The goal of Memory Palace is to tell stories centered around consciousness. This episode is all about out-of-body experiences. I had a great interview with Joe Rupe, radio host. He's a producer, and he's CEO of Fringe FM. You can find his show, Light in the Void, at fringe.fm. You can also download his app in all of the app stores. Really fun conversation. We were talking about out-of-body experiences, which I've been fascinated by for a while, and a bunch of other things about magic and the esoteric. Enjoy. First of all, let me just say, I love your show. I think I heard it. We talked on the phone the other day. I heard you on someone else's show, and I've listened to a lot of, I guess, to use your word, fringe kind of podcasts or shows, and I don't ever stick with them. But when I heard your show, immediately I was like, first of all, the intro to your show is badass. I think it's so cool. And I heard the Robert Monroe clip from
the affirmation.
The affirmation. Say to yourself, say now. And I was like, this is so, you have a good sense of storytelling, I think. And a lot of stuff in this space is pretty corny, I would say. And kind of like, it's like not cool. And so you have a really cool show. But the second thing that I really, really appreciated about your show is that you obviously had a lot of love. Like you really, it came through. You really cared about the people you were talking to. And that's,
I try to, yeah.
That's also something there's kind of like certain level of arrogance in the space sometimes, where people think that they have knowledge that other people don't have, and they think they're better than other people.
Yeah. There's a lot of, there in the industry that I'm in, there's a lot of backhanded psychological stuff going on. There's a lot of bullying going on, and a lot of altruism, and a lot of egos and things like that, right? And you can't relate to that. Like you have to think about how many radio show hosts do you hear say, I'm wrong, I made a mistake, that wasn't, you understand what I'm saying? They don't say that. They're constantly putting themselves in a position of authority. And I know it, and that's because that's what they've been trained to do. But I mean, I've literally heard these guys, a lot of these guys, they talk about virtue signaling, which is a thing where you talk about what's morally right all the time, and yet behind the scenes, you're doing exactly what you're preaching against, right? So when I got into this, I thought, I don't really care about any of that. I want to know, like, what's going on with this person I'm talking to, what kind of experiences they have, how deep into their mind and their emotions and their experience can I get without being intrusive at the same time. The only way you can do that is you have to care. It can't be fake, like you can't fake your way into somebody's heart and mind. You can a little bit, but you'll start meeting the blocks, actually. And that's so true. There was a guy that I interviewed on the show, and he just passed away. He was a therapist, and he would actually, I can't think of his name right now, but he would actually do this with children and things like that. He would try to work through their conditions and their trauma and stuff. And when he would get so deep, characters would come out, and nobody even knew who they were. Like, characters would come out and block him from doing it. And they would call themselves by different names and all kinds of stuff. I have to go back and look at that, but it was pretty intense. The mind is really a crazy place, man. It really is. So
we don't.
I'm fascinated by it.
It's like we don't understand it at all.
No,
we're scratching the surface, which is another reason I like your show. And the reason I think the reason I heard your interview was because I had stumbled onto this conspiracy theory page about the CIA documents that were released about this thing called the gateway process. I'll never forget it. I was doing a bunch of yard work at the time. I was tearing up my whole backyard. So I was just like out there for hours and hours and hours, and I would just listen to podcasts. So I stumbled on this like weird rabbit hole. I was like, this is interesting. And there was this document that was real of the CIA doing experiments about out-of-body experiences, astral projection, and I think it all kind of played into that the men who stare at goats type time in the CIA, where they were trying to see what they could do with consciousness. Anyways, I stumbled onto this guy's work, Robert Monroe, because of that. And then you had an interview where you talked about doing some of these audio recordings that he had released. And I thought,
yeah,
this is fascinating. So that's when I came to your podcast. So I had to reach out to you and talk to you. I've been looking forward to this like all week. We talked last week. I've been looking forward to it like crazy.
Yeah, me too.
But I think it's a lot of people talk about having experience like this, but sometimes it's hard to know, right? Because you're just reading it on some forum. You're like, is this real? I don't know. But with you, it's like reputable. You have a show, you have a consistent story. So I guess I would love just to hear, what's your background? How did you grow up? You grew up in Arkansas. How did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up with a single father raising me that was never home. That, you know, my grandmother raised me, and we were Christians, but it's like none of us really went to church unless I went to my other grandmother's house. Baptist Christians, grew up in like Southern Baptist. My dad used to get kicked out of churches for asking questions when I was a kid. Like they literally asked him to leave churches. So we would bounce from church to church when I was a kid. But he was really strict, my dad. I love him to death, but he was old school, really strict. And I had a lot of repressed emotions when I was a kid, and I would ask a lot of questions, and I didn't fit in school. I learned to fit in as I got older. You know, I did what I had to do to fit in as I got older. But when I turned about 19 or 20, partying and all this other stuff, I started asking questions, right? Like, something's not right about this. Is this all there is to life and things like that? And, you know, I'm hanging out with my buddies, and we're out at, you know, we're just partying. It's like 3:00 in the morning. So you can only imagine the kind of partying we're doing. And I'm asking these questions, and I start having panic attacks. And didn't even know what an anxiety attack was or a panic attack. I thought I was having a heart attack. But ever since that day, I just kept asking questions after question after question. And it led me to the library and books. And then I kind of veered off towards the metaphysical section and started reading books that made more sense than what the religions, you know, kind of started teaching me. And then I got into listening to late night radio. And somehow or another, I stumbled upon Robert Monroe's Journeys Out of the Body, right? I thought, this journey's out of the body, you know? This makes sense because my dad used to make me sit in my room as a punishment and read the Bible, text verbatim with Alexander Scorby. I don't know if you've ever heard it playing in the background.
Oh, yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah, and that was my punishment. But I remember the scriptures, the things that said, like, whether I was in the body or out of the body, I don't know, things like that. And I thought, well, what is this? And I started listening to his story, and it was kind of scientific and a little dull at first. And then he explained how he was falling asleep at night and a guy was breathing on the back of his neck. And for a minute, I thought, this isn't out of body. What is he talking about? And then he finally got around to figuring out that his astral body had separated and he was breathing on himself.
Yeah.
And then things got really interesting, and I was glued to it after that. You know, he put his hands through the floor. He did all kinds of experiments to make sure that he was right. He wasn't crazy. Very convincing. This guy was more convincing than anybody. But I'm like you. I don't believe. I don't care. I don't believe it. But I'm going to try it. Right. So I got really obsessed with it, and I started trying it. And I had my first out of body experience, not a lucid dream. You know, I don't think it's even what some people call astral travel, although it could be. But peeling myself out of my physical body, watching myself sleep. And then from that point, everything that my life or who I was up to that point shifted. I was no longer the same person. I had way more questions than answers, way more aspirations than I did before, you know. And all I wanted to do was go explore this, talk to people, get out of Arkansas, figure this out. And I'm just obsessed over it, man. You know,
Was this in 2016?
it was around then. Yeah. I would say it was around then. Yeah. I don't remember if I started looking into magic or the out of body experience first. I think I was studying kind of like both at the same time, you know. Magic seemed a bit dogmatic, right? But there were still so many cool things about it. Monroe's and the out of body experience, these guys took a more scientific approach, but far more open about things. And it was like taking a journey into consciousness with someone just like me that had no answers to any of it, but was willing to explore it as far as he could go, you know. And that's what I thought I want to do. That's what I want to do. So I came to this show and I made it, I think about that time, I called it Lighting the Void, or we came up with this Void Walker Creed, which is basically, you know, a family of explorers of consciousness that are willing to do it practically, not just sit around and talk about it, even though we do, but practically explore it to find the answers. And then whatever we find, still make sure that we say we don't know. We still don't know. We know that we know this, but we don't know it all. And I think that just keeps opening up doors for us as long as we're that way, you know.
Oh man. Well, I love that approach. I think that it just resonates so much because when you grew up Christian, it's like you just have to believe it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that a lot of it doesn't make sense or doesn't line up.
Right.
You have to just believe it by faith. And but there's also something to the Bible, right? And I think I had the same sort of emotions when I was listening to kind of the stories of out of body experiences, which is, well, this isn't like so abnormal. So maybe coming from a Christian background makes you slightly more open to the possibility, because there's so many stories in the Bible of someone having kind of an out of body or mystical experience.
Oh yeah, Christians do seem to be open too. And I remember when I got into Freemasonry, because I was trying to study that too. And that, you know, being a Southern Freemason from Arkansas is a little, you know, it's kind of traditional, but they would all ask, they'd be like, do you go to church? I'm like, I read your books. I didn't think that mattered, but to them, it kind of did, right? Because they want to make sure that you believe in a creator. But that was another cool thing, right? As long as you believe in a creator, we'll show you the history of all kinds of stuff. And, you know, to me, I'll never understand why all this stuff is hidden, but I like to be able to question things. But like I said, man, the mind is a den of scorpions, dude. You can get lost in it, right? So to me, it's way better to, okay, I got this question. Oh, you're telling me this hemisync thing is going to work. Let me try it. That way I don't have to, because I'll drive myself crazy. I'm in my head all the time, you know? So that way I know. And if something happens, oh man, now I got some more questions. I'm going to keep trying this. I did the same thing with ceremonial magic. I did it with the out of body experience. And then the more I studied these two things, the more I started realizing they're both kind of, you know, doing the same thing. They're kind of talking about the same things.
The same state. Yeah.
Yeah.
So describe, I heard you tell the story once, and then I want you to tell me again, you know, about the first time, because you said it's like a lot different than lucid dreaming. I think a lot of people have had lucid dreams where you kind of realize you're dreaming and you can start walking around. But this was different, right? Because you were specifically putting yourself in this state.
Yeah. So for a few nights, I've been listening to Monroe tapes. I've been switching back and forth between Robert Monroe and William Buhlman tapes, you know, and I would lay on the couch and I was doing this technique where you woke yourself up at 3:00 in the morning so that your body's relaxed and you walk around a little bit and you lay down. I did that for probably, I would say, at least a week. And I would get to the vibratory state, which was awesome. It was amazing to me that I could not move my body and be completely paralyzed, but my mind is totally awake, right? And my body would hum. It would vibrate like a battery, you know, almost. And then I would try to peel myself out, but I can't move. It's weird. It's like I can't move. So how do I peel myself out? Like, what do I peel out? This doesn't make sense. And I struggled with it and struggled with it. And it's like a feeling, right? So one day, it was right when I was about to give up, which is kind of synchronistic about magic too. As soon as you give up on something, it manifests. But right when I was about to give up, I thought to myself, okay, here's the vibratory state. I'll feel the hum and I'll let it die down a little. And then I'll peel myself out slowly, but without stopping the inertia. In other words, just slowly and relaxing move, but never stop. And I did that. And I sat up and I thought, nothing. Still, same thing, nothing. Like this is stupid. They're just talking about the vibratory state. You know, that's what I'm thinking in my head. That's all they're talking about. I get up and I feel different, right? And I'm like, well, something's a little different. As soon as I stood up and I turned around, and there I was, just laid out on the couch, man, mouth wide open, sleeping, you know, and headphones on and everything. And I was so excited, man. Like everything for me changed in that moment, you know. I mean, inside of me, I'm like, oh my God, I did it. Right. But I was also thinking, get away from your body fast, because they taught you that if you're close to it, there's like this magnetic pull to it, which is weird because it's kind of dense. And I went outside, and just like what you're experiencing right now, what you see and how you feel things, the reality that you see right now, there is no difference. The only difference is you can fly. You can go through things, right? I didn't see a difference. I didn't smell a difference. It was just really quiet. That's all, with a slight, maybe a little hum. And I don't think I remember how I felt. I think the mood was just normal, you know. But I thought, yeah, I'm going to go outside and fly. So I went out to the front yard. I don't remember if I went through the door or opened the door. You know, my mind tells me I opened the door, but what I do know is I was doing daily exercises to practice flying too, right? So I know my neighbors thought I was crazy. During the day, I'd go out and actually try to fly while I was awake, which is something these books would tell you to do. And so I went outside and I looked at a tree, and I just focused on a branch, and I pulled myself towards it, and I flew like I was on a zip line. I mean, perfect velocity, right? Straight towards where I was aiming. And it hit me. It was like, oh, this is what he meant by stretch, what Robert Monroe meant by stretch, right? Because you can pull yourself towards things, and that's really what flying is. And then I thought, okay, well, I got overly excited and tried something I wasn't ready for, and just took off towards space, and everything got really fuzzy. And the next thing you know, I'm in my body again, and I can hear the you know, what's in my headphones. After that, dude, I was excited. I woke my son up. I couldn't wait to tell everybody. I was talking to everybody about at work about it. They thought I was crazy. I thought I was crazy for a little bit, but no, it was fantastic, man.
And that changed your life because you were living in Arkansas at the time, and you were working a job, and you hadn't like thought of doing a radio station, or had you?
I started to do one, yeah, because I got into this stuff. So I started to do a show, yeah.
You started it before that happened?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because you were into it, and then it happened.
Yeah, I started the Lighting the Void podcast. I think right when it about happened, but the timeline's all kind of messed up for me, actually. But I can tell you that all of this stuff started coming together at the same time, you know. And like you said, man, this thing changed my life. And it's almost like I've been trying to get to that thing ever since. Now I've had other moments almost like that. I've gotten out of body where I was blind and literally felt around my desk. I got out of body and started trying to affect the physical world and did some experiments. But I think what happened is I got so excited. And you know how there's a lot of people that say we shouldn't give in to astonishment, right? I forget who says that stuff. I remember that was some of the psychonauts say that, right? Don't give in to astonishment because it'll go away. And the more I gave into the astonishment, the harder it was to get back to that state, which is really weird, you know.
What do you think that is?
I don't know. I really don't. I think it's something energetic, because I think our emotions are tied to our energy somehow. And the more balanced we are, the more things we can do consciously. And a perfect example of that is the syncing of the two hemispheres of the brain. When they take a tone and take another one that are just barely off, and your brain forces the sound to become one tone, it becomes balanced. Just like when you're energetically balanced, you're not too tired, you're not too, too energized. I think there's something about that state that allows us to move consciously through wherever we want to move. That's just intuition. I don't know if I'm right about that. If we're too tired and too drained, we can't do anything. If we give into astonishment or we get too excited, something jumbles up and it stops. It's really weird, man. I don't know what it is, but I think there's something to balance when it comes to that. And even magic, that's all they talk about. It's balance, the middle path, the two pillars, balancing yourself. There's something to all of this. It all runs together for sure.
Wow. Man, I have so many thoughts. I think that feeling a lot of people have, like that you described, I know I have it, which is that there's more than this sort of going to work 9 to 5. You come home, you watch TV, you feel anxious a lot or depressed. It's like, there's got to be more to life than this. You pay the bills. It's like, it's so mundane. And that, you have experience like that completely upends your entire life, because all of a sudden you realize, it really is magnificent.
Yeah, there's no way of knowing how great it can be, or what's out there. And even listening to Robert Monroe's books, like all 3 of them. So if he's right about the out-of-body experience, and he's telling the truth about all the other experiences that he had, and let's just assume he is, then we're all wrong. All of us, right? We're all wrong. But just to know, you're right, because it was like the first time I knew that I was more than my physical body. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, because in our minds we just assume it, but it was a massive deal to me, right? It was a massive deal. It was exciting, to be able to know that. So, yeah.
I've been reading this book. I think I told you about on the phone, The Occult by Colin Wilson. And he talks about, he calls it Faculty X, sort of this kind of unknown ability that is dormant in us to do all these crazy things, that either it's dormant or that we can evolve into doing it. And I found that fascinating. Like, do you think this is something? I think it is. It's becoming like more and more common because people are talking about it more. Do you think this is like going to spread? Do you think more and more people are going to have experiences like this?
Yeah, I do. I think there's something to things that are hidden. Like, we know secrets, right? And all these secret societies, they've kept secrets. But the thing about a secret is, and we all know this, whether it's in your relationships or in your personal life or whatever, secrets don't stay secret. They don't. And so whatever the secrets are out there that we know about, and even the ones we don't know about, we are going to learn. It's just like scripture says, all that's hidden will be revealed. And I think that we're in a time when that's happening. That's starting to happen. More people are into the occult, the metaphysics, the out-of-body experience than ever. We've got organizations across the world, not just the Monroe Institute, but in other places in the world that are running the out-of-body experience. That's all they're about, is these altered states of consciousness, trying to figure things out. We've got cosmologists who are saying, hey, the rate that the universe is expanding, right, doesn't make sense. The more we measure it, the faster it gets. There must be some mirror universe that we can't see. And the more they try to find dark matter, the less they come up with of conclusive evidence of anything, right? So of what I think we're about to learn and what we're trying to learn, we just haven't admitted it yet as a whole, is there is a metaphysical, spiritual world, and we are of it. Like, it's a fact at this point. There's so many people getting out of body, it should be a fact at this point. Now that world is, I mean, you can only imagine. We don't even know everything about this world. That world is a whole other crazy place that we need to start exploring,
Isn't it so exciting, man? To think about the exploring inward. And it really does feel, I know a lot of people are focused on going to Mars or doing a lot of things, but it does feel like the next great adventure is inward into our own consciousness. That's the next frontier.
Right. And another thing too, I think where we make a mistake is whether it's our dreams that we say we want to manifest, right? Well, I want this dream life and this dream relationship and this or that or whatever, and it doesn't manifest and we get disappointed. I think where we make a mistake is that we don't realize that this isn't real either, So once we realize that, then things will start happening a lot faster for us, And this is something that I've learned in magic, right? The sooner you let go of the idea that everything you're experiencing right now is what we call real, the faster, the crazier, and the more adventurous life you can have. You know what I mean? And it gets a little nutty after that too. You got to be careful. You don't want to go, you got to stay grounded too at the same time, which is balance, right? It's another form of that balance. So,
man, that's so exciting, because that's something I've thought about for sure over the past couple of years, is that reality isn't as fixed as we think it is. Obviously, I mean, by setting an intention, you went out of your body. And Robert Monroe talks about the second body, that it's a reality and that everything has this other spiritual element connected to it that is energetic. Yeah. I think in that same CIA paper, it's talking about the holographic universe. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about stuff that sounds a lot like law of attraction and sort of this new age stuff, but it's in this very official government document. And so we do live in a very odd time. And I think you're right that there's something here that's like, we're on the cusp and it's hard to kind of like place it. Yeah. That's again why I love, like,
well, we're getting there, right? So the governing bodies are having to do official like court things about UFOs. Now they're having to do it publicly. Why? And they're still him-hawing us around about it. But the pressure of the mysteries is enough that things are starting to happen, right? So I did this whole thing with my life. I remember reading Neil Donald Walsh's book, Conversations with God, because it just occurred to me, like, if God talked to these people, why doesn't he talk to people now? And the guy said, in the first book, I remember reading it, and this was kind of like after I had the out-of-body experience, he said, God told Neil, he said, are you ready to go on this journey that I'm sending you on? I know everybody that's hearing this message right now. And a chill went up my spine, like a real chill, And I thought to myself, I have to go, I don't know for how long, but I have to go on an adventure of faith. And in other words, I have to see what I can manifest in my life, doing what I love based on faith. Doesn't mean I don't work. It just means I do work, but I focus on what my heart is pulling me to. And that led me all over the United States to living on the beach, which now that I remember when I was a kid, I used to dream about. I thought it would be so cool to live on the beach, but it seemed worlds away to me. But everything that we dream about or that we desire isn't worlds away. It's right in front of us. And I think this is what Christ talked about, where the kingdom of heaven is here now, right? You just don't see it. But we put a lot of boundaries in front of us, and I think all of this stuff kind of reveals and lets the boundaries go away,
but this is, I mean, but this conversation, this topic, I think, I don't know if there's anything more important, because, you know, there's a lot of other crazy conspiracies and things to talk about. But in the end, you know, it's only so much I can do about government corruption or, you know, other people doing crazy things out there. But I can control myself.
Right.
And I can control my experience. That's why it's so fascinating to me that no one can actually take that away from you. Your own consciousness, you're in control of it. And I don't think there's anything more important than that.
No, there's not. And this is what the mysteries of light are, right? When you hear this stuff talking about don't put your light in a bush or hide your candle or under a blanket or whatever all those verses mean, when you get to looking in the esoteric versions of it, it simply means everything around you is a mirror, everything. So consciousness is one thing. We're in this realm of division. Everything around you is a mirror. If you let the mirror dictate your life, you're hiding your light. But if you tell the mirror, I am that I am, all the time, it doesn't matter if you're talking to a person, if you're looking at a tree, if you're doing a career, as long as you follow that God consciousness in you, your life will be abundant in ways you can't imagine. I'm not saying it's money or anything like that, but I got to tell you, man, before I came out of body, my life seemed like nothing was going to change. But when I took this faith walk into the unknown or into the void, everything changed, and everything changed for the better, you know. And I don't even know how to explain that to people, right? Because it doesn't make sense. It's not practical or whatever. And I think now I'm on this journey of going, okay, I see it now. Now I have to ground myself. So I'm kind of balancing myself from the spirit world to the ground, is what I feel like, where other people might be doing it the other way. But either way, that figure eight is the same thing. One depends on the other. And I also think it's funny, you hear people say, well, I can't wait till I leave this place or whatever, right? And I'm thinking, wouldn't it be funny if as soon as you passed away, you're in the labor room again, almost 3 seconds after that, right? You go to this infinite place for a little while and you come back. You go to this infinite spiritual world and you come back. Because the more, and I talked to Laird Scranton about this, the more I have these experiences, the more I think that both worlds depend on each other, which is why the mystery of life, you know, or birth, life, death, and resurrection is such a holy thing. It's what keeps everything going, you know, I think.
It's this circle.
Yeah.
It's eternal circle. Yeah. I mean, growing up Christian, like the idea of reincarnation and stuff was just like, no, it's not. You get one life, you either go to heaven or hell when you die. Hell is punishment, and heaven is you're eternally serving God still. So it didn't seem so great either. I'm going to be honest with you. The Christian idea, the Christian idea of heaven I grew up with. I remember when I was a little kid, the pastor talking about, like, you would go to heaven, you would get your crown, you'd throw it at Jesus' feet for all eternity. And after the service, I told my mom, heaven sounds kind of boring. And she said, oh, you'll like it, which was just the worst answer. That, like, magically I would like, you know, to do that for eternity. So
you know what it is? It's like a bunch of beached whales on an island they know nothing about, that found an old scroll, and now some of the other beached whales think they know everything. That's basically what it is. So you know.
I love what you're talking about with, you know, you followed this sort of, I guess it's an intuition that led you down this path. I think Joseph Campbell calls it following your bliss.
Yeah.
You know, and that is where that's where you find life. So can you talk, like, for me, I started this business and stuff, and it's like, for a similar reason you started Fringe FM, right? Which is, I just love this topic and I want to dive deeper into it. And you're doing it from radio show because you grew up. I mean, I loved Art Bell growing up. I told you that on the phone the other day. We would
Right.
lay in bed, we're these Christian boys, me and my brother, but we would lay in bed listening to like UFO stories and like
listening to the
the
craziest stuff ever.
The most insane callers you've
It
ever
was
heard
the
in your life.
best stuff ever, wasn't it? Really, it was.
It's fantastic. And it does expand your mind that maybe this stuff is out there. I remember he would have those like ghost to ghost episodes instead of coast to, and he would tell all these ghost stories, and it was like it would freak me out. But also you start to question, man, is this stuff?
Is it? Well, yeah. I mean, the one that made me question, is it real? Like, I knew there was the guy that called in that was flying over Area 51 and got shot down. That had to have been a spook, but it sounded real. But when Madman Markham called in and he started talking about this portal that he made at work, that he stole these transformers, and he made a Jacob's ladder and he started throwing stuff through it and it disappeared. And you're like, what? And then the sheriff would call in and said, no, we really arrested him. He went to jail. We found him with all these transformers. And it was like, you got to go back and listen to that one. Right. So Madman Markham's first thing. Yeah. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about. When Art Bell quit doing his show, or towards the end of it, I started doing podcasting. And then when he quit his show, it felt like I lost a best friend. And like, I didn't know what to do because I didn't relate to anybody in Arkansas about it. I could talk to everybody all day long about Art Bell in Arkansas. It didn't seem like anybody knew who he was, So I started doing live shows 5 nights a week. And I thought, and I don't think it was to be Art Bell. I don't think anybody will ever be Art Bell, but it was to fill that void. Right. And that's all I've ever done since then. I didn't plan on the Fringe FM being as big as it turned out to be. I didn't plan on any of this. I just started kind of taking things as it came, and it just took me here to there to here, but I don't think we should limit ourselves either. Like, I don't think we should. I think we should follow our bliss, like you're talking about. There is no lack of opportunity, love, experience. There's no lack of anything. There's no lack of money. If you think about it, there really isn't, right? There's no lack of love. There's no lack of consciousness. There's no lack of food. There's no lack of anything. And if we really believed that something out there was looking out for us, and we really tried to learn how to listen to it, experiment with it and listen to it, I think we would have a whole different planet. I don't think people would be as scared as they are about things, and Monroe talked about this in, I think, his second or third book, where he met beings that they could change the weather with their consciousness. They used their bodies for vehicles of experience. And when they were done with them, they would leave them by the tree, which actually could be the Garden of Eden, where that story came from. We don't know, but it makes more sense to me than being punished for eating fruit, right? So, I mean, I don't think we're going to find the answers to all this stuff without, or even get close, without keeping an open mind and actually trying to have conscious experiences, trying to have them, whether it's meditation, the out of body experience, practicing manifestation or magic, remote viewing exercises, any of the stuff that you're comfortable with. Once something really happens, and this is what we're all looking for, that one experience. I saw a Bigfoot. I went out of body or whatever. Once something really happens, and I mean, it's definitive, that's when things change for you. I haven't seen a dog man. I haven't seen a UFO, or well, maybe I haven't seen an alien, right? I haven't had any of the experiences these people talk about, but I have gotten out of body, and I have manifested things so synchronistic time after time and again, that it cannot be coincidental at this point,
Can you talk a little bit about synchronicities? Are so weird, like, because you start finding them when you're like on your path. They just keep popping up. And
yeah.
And do you still get them all the time?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I'll give you an example of the latest one, right? Like it happens on the radio show all the time. If you're doing what you love, like you said, it'll happen all the time. So I was having an experience in a relationship with someone that I had this certain kind of connection with, don't know what to do about it. I had a guest on my show last night that I don't know where she came from. Oh, actually, I do. A listener like you was his wife, but she's an author. And she came on the show, and everything about her studies answered everything that I just went through. Like that's happened to me a million times, right? Every place that I've envisioned in my mind, I've been. Like, for instance, the dreams that I had about being in that snowy place with the barn thing or whatever. Well, that was New York. I had like 9 million deja vu things when I was there. The same thing with Arizona. I used to have these like deja vu or dreams or I guess visions of me staring at a certain night sky, and I would talk to people about it and they'd be like, well, that's not, that could be this place or that could be Texas, Colorado or whatever. And I would explain it to them. They're like, no, 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 no. But when I got to Arizona, I moved to this little place south of Sedona called Cornville. And I would go home and look at the night sky and I realized that's the exact same sky that I saw in my dreams, And now when I look at the beach, this is the biggest synchronicity. I used to lay in my bed and envision like a certain color of the water. It's nice and turquoise and green and dark blue in certain spots. And the waves are just perfect for surfing, but not too big. And I'm looking at them, I've had, as far as relationships go, I've envisioned in my heart and mind what I would want, like a woman or whatever. And they've shown up, and this is before I started messing with magic. Once I started getting into magic, things get a little choppy there, right? Because they manifest. I don't think they manifest naturally until you know what you're doing. I think this whole magical process is a little scary, to be honest with you, because whatever you focus your emotion on is what's going to happen. So if you're afraid of something, it's going to, manifest even more. If you're really excited about something, that's the best state I've learned you can be in. Excited, following your bliss with expectations of no result, right? If you can get to that point, you can manifest all the most amazing things in your life, but we're not naturally that way. Once we come around stuff that we've never had, we want it really bad. And the second we get in that state of lack, things start getting choppy. So it's a little weird, it's weird for sure.
It's like the secret to life is that it's paradox.
It's dude, it's a constant paradox for sure. Like think about, you think when people either get a massive amount of money, you think they're lucky, but most of the time they didn't care about it. Or when people fall into the love of their life, they're not looking for it. Most of the good stuff in your life happens when you're pretty satisfied and happy and you're carefree. You could care less about what you have because you feel fulfilled. You're full of gratitude and grateful. And the possibilities are endless and you can't wait to experience what else is out there. That's when things start really happening for you, But the second you question things, doubt things, become fearful, or you get in this state of lack or fear or whatever, that's when things get bad for you. So this can be heaven or it can be hell here in Middle Earth, so to speak. It's really up to you,
It's like some of the things you're saying are very like reminiscent of a lot of New Age teaching.
It is New Agey, but it's true though.
But I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that like my beef with the New Age thing is that it often is like incomplete. It's like secret, right? It's like just think about it and it'll come. It's very
it doesn't quite work that way. I mean, right. Yeah. You can't trick yourself and say, I'm rich, and look in your pocket and you got a bunch of money. Right.
Yeah.
But, Napoleon, I think it was Napoleon Hill talks about this, or Dale Carnegie. I forget who it was. Let's say you only got $20 to your name. This is where I'm different than most people, and people think I'm crazy. Right. But you only got $20 to your name. You're dirt poor. You got nothing saved up, barely know where to live or whatever, but you have aspirations to be rich. Now, what most people do is take that $20 and either, tuck it away, try to make it last 3 weeks, maybe gamble it to make it more $20, or hold on to it till they get a job. But what you really should do is realize that this is a small piece of a massive amount of abundance. And if I do what's in my heart with this $20, or what glorifies or makes me the happiest, then things will come, right? And you're tested like this throughout your whole life, all the time. All the time, you're going to be tested like this. And I think, and I know someone knows if they're hearing this, right, that it's happened to them. They got $20 for their name, and the worst case of a homeless person ever come up to them in their entire life. Right. Why now? But if you want to manifest riches, give $10 to the homeless guy, take the other 10 and go buy a drink at the most expensive hotel you can imagine and just experience it. Say, man, this is it. This is great. There's no lack of this. But that's kind of hard to do. So I think Napoleon Hill or Dale Carnegie did this. Once you just stay in that state of mind, things will start happening for you. It's hard to do, though. It gets hard to do sometimes. So,
talk about how do you do it? How did you end up going? I think it's always so interesting to talk to people who do it. Who live that way.
There's what the magicians or the hermeticists call the hermetic laws, and these are the only things that I kind of know that's real, right? There's the law of polarity, which works for both. The vibratory state, or the out of body experience and magic. But my point is gender, vibration, polarity, ebb and flow. These hermetic laws kind of work for everything, So a lot of people will watch a movie and they say, well, magicians do rituals and poof, and something appears, but it doesn't really work that way. The universe is governed by laws, but there's only really 7 that they're governed by, which is the law of hermetics. So what we vibrate is what we put out, right? Cause and effect. If we do something, there's an effect. There's a direct effect. So magic will we call it magic because we don't know what it is. But magic will manifest things through these laws. So this is kind of where we need to be careful. Because if you get real specific and you say, well, I want to manifest $1,000 or whatever, well, the universe has to work through these laws and the stories that are playing out and everything to make that $1,000 come to you. So you may have to have an accident to get an insurance check or something, because the universe doesn't care. You see, it doesn't seem to care about what's right, wrong. It doesn't seem to care about it. What it seems to care about is, what are you putting out? Oh, I got you. I'll give that to you. That's it, right? It's like this observing thing where we're the creator and it's observing and trying to give us back what we're asking for. Just like when we do experiments with mice, so to speak. I think it wants this, it doesn't really know. It just knows it kind of does what we put out, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. How do you work with it? Because your life is whatever you focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you find that it's best to work with the way that it is, right? Because the way that it is what you're talking about. It's like you get what you think you'll get.
Right. Well, first you have to understand that what I think the coolest things about magic is the magician's tools were to teach you how to use these things. Your intellect was, air, which was the knife or the dagger or whatever, right? Water was the cup, fire, was the wand, and then you had the pentacle. So you have to learn how to use the tools of your energy, because as a magician, we're like a transistor for energy, but we're also telling it what to do. We're taking it in, telling it what to do all the time. So we have to get to a state emotionally and intellectually and physically focused on what we really want in our heart. And there's tons of shamans and people and stuff that do this. They'll do rituals where, and I have a few visualization exercises I do too, where what magic says, oh, imagine, the rain, right? Well, in magic, you don't imagine it's raining. You don't just shut your eyes and go, okay, it's raining. You imagine that you feel the rain, you smell the rain, your feet are in the mud, right? You can feel how wet your skin is, that kind of thing. You do all this with the tools that you have, and then you physically move towards it in the best way you can. It's all just kind of being open to it, right? That's the only way I know how to explain it, to be honest with you, because you have to already know that it's going to happen. Does that make sense? Like, there's so many things that will come into your life to tell you it's not going to happen. You can't have this. It's not going to happen. You're a bad person. There's this kind of lack. Oh, woe is me. Be afraid, whatever. And you're going to come up against all of this stuff all the time. And you have to be the one just knowing that whatever's going to happen for you is going to happen for you. And you have to be open also to the manifestation happening in a way not exactly the way you pictured it. So again, it's just like living your bliss as best as you can without the expectation of results. So if you wanted to manifest prosperity and money, you just live in the world, the pentacle, as if you already have it. You think and use your emotions and move, and you use the fires of your body and desires of your body as if you're already that kind of person, right? How it manifests, it will go through these hermetic laws and manifest back to you. Here's the key. Once it does that, energy is perpetual, right? So once it does that, you celebrate it. Right? Look what I've done. Look at this. Look how amazing this is. I am that I am. You keep doing it and just see what happens. Usually we'll do that once we get in our spiritual grooves, our manifesting grooves. We'll do these things until we get tested, big time. There's something big that comes to block us. Well, at that point, we fail the test and we start all over. And that's what life is, right? But I think if we start getting out of body more, if we start doing that stuff more, when we meet these blocks that I'm talking about, we won't be as easily put down anymore because we've actually had these experiences. We know, it's not just faith. We know. That's I guess that's why I'm trying to do all this stuff,
It's fantastic, man. It's fantastic.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You could have the love of your life. You can meet the girl of your dreams and you're about to get married or something. And it's the best thing that you've ever, whatever. But something will happen and you'll question it. Oh, maybe this, maybe this isn't my person, or maybe this isn't the job I'm supposed to do, or, I'm a little nervous now. I might lose this stuff. And then that state of mind is where we go back down. We're not really spiraling the right way energetically, if that makes sense.
Right. Because we you always run into the test that makes you question.
Yeah. And see, that's why I stay in the radio booth all the time, because when I get around people or start having to really interact with people, this is my test, is what I'm trying to figure out, because you start taking on other people's energy about that too, right? I can deal with myself, but how do I deal with their blocks and their negativities and their things and stuff like that? How do I not let it affect me? And this is where the love comes in that you brought up earlier. That is the most powerful conscious tool that we have, is love. We can use our intellect, emotions, and all this stuff and write little sigils and do all the craziest stuff in the world. But if we don't actually see that other person as who we are, that's me, that's little me, right? Then I don't think I don't think everything's going to manifest the way it should, you know?
I love it. I have a off the wall question.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that you don't know why this stuff is hidden. I was reading Journeys Out of the Body, and Robert Monroe, in the chapter called, I think just called Premises. One of his premises is that if he can do it, other people can do it.
Yep.
And if he can do it, maybe they can do it better. And would they be actively trying to hide the fact that it exists, and or try to influence things? And he brought up as an example that he pinched someone's side and it bruised them. And he was saying, what if you could cause an aneurysm in someone's brain? What if you could save someone's life, right? So this is where it dips into secret societies and stuff like that.
Yeah, what's the potential of all this stuff? Yeah.
This stuff is
That's because I remember him saying that. He's like, I'm just an average guy that figured this out. If I can do it. What he also went and tried to talk to the president. Do you remember that?
So that's another question, because he ends up being involved with the CIA, and
in the astral realm is what I mean. He went to try to talk to the president, and they were guarding it.
Yeah, and before, it was a weird little blurb in the book where he's like, I ran across this guy and he said, why do you want to see the president? And he was like, I don't know why I want to see Eisenhower. But then he realized it was JFK. And then it was just an odd story that he sort of just tells and then moves on. And I was like, wait a second.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of that in his books, right? Or like those are big questions. You're thinking, whoa. And I remember exactly what you're talking about. He said, if I can do this, do they know about this? Have they known about this? Are there other people that are doing these things? And if you've watched the documentary, like I was telling you, Third Eye Spies, you need to watch it. They don't talk about Robert Monroe, but they show him shaking hands in that film with these people in these projects. So Monroe worked with these people too, which is another kind of like weird question. He was in there with, Project Gateway and stuff.
I think the question is well, I guess it's not even a question. If the premise is this, you had an out-of-body experience. He had out-of-body experiences. A lot of people are having them. Therefore, if enough people are verifying this is true, it must be true. We know people want to control power. This is obviously a powerful mental tool, if nothing else. And we don't know publicly.
You're getting into the dark stuff right now, aren't you? Yeah.
So, but I think that actually it's a great time to be alive, because it's what you said, the darkness becomes light. I think that a lot of these secret things will be revealed. And I do feel that there's a lot more going on that people do know about that's starting to come out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, imagine that you can get out of body. If you can do it, then what do the secret societies, what do the magicians know? What do the people that have been doing this stuff? Is there more that they know that you don't? Are they affecting your dreams? Are they affecting your consciousness? I'm going to tell you you want to hear a freaky story that made me really think about this? I'll tell you one. All right. But my point, the end of that point is like, if that's your angle, or if that's something that you're worried about and you should be, then why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you experimenting consciously with this stuff and figuring out the importance of it? Right. I know the Grand Canyon is cool, and so is the sky, but I'm telling you, you can become a ghost. Why is that? Why are you not doing that? You can become a ghost and affect the physical world. You can't. You don't care about that? Like there's no video game that's that cool. There's no movie that's that cool. Imagine what you could do. So why aren't you doing it? So I'll tell you a really crazy story. You know what a false awakening is?
No.
A false awakening is when you think you're awake, but you're not. Right. You act like you're awake. You wake up, you look at your phone, And it's like, oh, but you're really still asleep. And you keep, so I had this experience. I was trying to get out of body on the couch again, and I fell asleep. And I woke up and looked at my phone, and I was tapping my phone, and my phone the screen wouldn't come on. I thought, that's weird. Why is the screen not coming on? I felt groggy. And then I realized I'm still sleeping. I'm still sleeping. So I was like, all right, I'll wake myself up. Right. So I'm trying to wake myself up. I could feel my eyes shaking, just, really trying to wake myself up. I wake myself up and I grab my phone and I go to tap it. That's usually what I do when I wake up. Screen's still not coming on, just boosh, boosh. But everything seems real. I'm like, this is unbelievable. I'm still asleep. I did this like 4 or 5 times. And finally, about the 5th time, I was laying on the couch and I looked up like this. I was laying on the couch and I just kind of gave up and I stretched my head up like this. And there was something over me, dude, like a hood, kind of like all I saw was when I looked up was a hood and pale skin and something blue around the eyes. That was enough for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is that? What is that? And I started doing all these prayers and vibrations and vibratory things that I learned in magic. And I saw it move. And when it moved kind of weird. It felt like, I don't know if you've ever been in a swimming pool and someone walks by you underwater, but that's what it felt like when it moved. And then I woke up for real. And I thought to myself, man, what was that? I've been thinking about this the whole time, because sometimes when you get out of body, I'm not trying to freak people out, but there's entities that are just sitting there waiting for you to come out. And it's not like, you don't really want to think about that stuff, man. But most of the time they're not. But how was this? What was this thing? How was it affecting my consciousness? Why was I in this state of a false awakening over and over and over again? And it had something to do with whatever that being was it affecting me that way? Was it in the astral realm controlling my sleep? Like, I don't know, And if it was, then what else is in the astral realm controlling my sleep? Or putting things in my head or keeping me in certain states of consciousness? That is a good question to think about, right? If you think about crazy people that are all of a sudden schizophrenic, or they go do this or that, like there's so many things that don't make sense, and I don't want to go down this fear road, because it can get really scary if we start talking about it. But you should be, like, at the very least, looking into this stuff for yourself. Magicians do these rituals. There's a ritual called the Rose Cross. And earlier you were talking about the circle and what it represents. Well, magicians use a circle to protect themselves. But it's to protect yourself from the astral entities in the realm and stuff, because they don't believe that it's somewhere separate. It's here. We just don't see it. But once you get done with this ritual, you pretty much make a cross and a rose around your whole aura is what you're doing. And you're protecting yourself with certain divine names. And they call it the ritual of invisibility. But it doesn't make you invisible in this realm. It's not like you disappear. But consciously, in the astral realm, that realm that we're connected to, you do. So all of the beings and all the bad and yucky stuff out there will leave you alone. It's the ritual that you do if you need a break from all the metaphysical stuff, right? And they call it the ritual of invisibility because when people do this ritual, and if they've done it correctly, a lot of times, and there's been reports of this, they'll go into the real world and just do crazy stuff, and no one even just acknowledges them. No one even recognizes them. Aleister Crowley did this experiment. He did the Rose Cross ritual and, went down the town, and I think he dressed up like a clown and started doing all kinds of stuff. Nobody paid him any attention. Everybody's brains disconnected from him for some reason. I've done this personally. And yeah, if I look and say, if I pay for something at a store, they'll give it to me. But as far as things like eye contact, normal stuff that would happen during the day where people lock onto you consciously, things like that, doesn't happen. Now, why is that? Really? Because I protected myself astrally? are our brains connected to this deeper than we think? Like, I don't know, man. It's a weird thing to think about, you know?
Man, it's like you could talk forever about this stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons I really, really like what you do, is because you do it. One of the things that I just, well, you know, you grew up in church. There's a lot of people who talk the talk and don't walk the walk. And I think it's true of all of life. And I just appreciate when people actually live it and experience it. And that's what I personally value, is just experience.
Yeah. Well, you would think for as much as it's valued, that it wouldn't be such a lonely path, you know, but it is.
Why is it so lonely? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't have conversations like this with people. People don't want to have conversations like this. I mean, you go out with your friends for a drink. If you started talking about this stuff, they would just...
Yeah, they're gone. They're gone, right? Yeah.
Why is that?
Just because they're like Monroe talks about, and so do the magicians talk about, everything's energy. And what people are focused on nowadays, they're focused on health, wealth, and relationships. That's for the most part. How do they feel? You know, how much money they have, and their love life. And everything they do kind of moves around these three things for the most part. You know, if you start talking about things outside of that and their energy isn't focused on it, they're going to want to cut it out. It's like an annoyance to the energy. They don't care about it. Something is going to have to happen to these people on an energetic level, spiritually, until they get to that point, right? So I still think we live in a world where lots of people are truth seekers and kind of like initiated, so to speak, on a certain level, looking for answers. And the rest are just still kind of focused on the mundane things. And Manly P. Hall kind of talks about this in his book. He goes into these different states about that. So I can tell you, the more I explore consciousness in the real world, the lonelier it becomes, you know, in the real world, right? And the more I try to do what I say I'm going to do, even when I shouldn't, you know, or be as real as I can to myself, the lonelier it gets. It's kind of weird. That's the and I think you'll come out of that, or I will eventually. But I think that's the path of the hermit, right? It's the hermit card, because the more wisdom you seek, they talk about in Ecclesiastes, right? The more wisdom you seek, the more sorrowful you become. So don't forget to balance that out. Eat, drink, and be merry. Don't forget about your bliss. Don't forget about to enjoy life while you're here, you know. That's something I'm learning too, you know, personally. I mean, I got a beach right here, dude. I'm hardly ever over there. I'm hardly on the beach, man. You know,
you got to go.
Yeah, I should go more. I should experience life more for sure. But I don't know why. You know, at night when I talk about this stuff, it's either people that are lonely that don't have anybody to relate to, or it's people that are hiding the fact that they're curious about all this stuff, and they don't, like you said, they don't get to talk about it to everybody in their real world, you know, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that, well, if you try and talk about it, people look at you like you're insane. Like, what? Like, you know, automatically shut down the possibility of anything than what they can see with their own two eyes. And it doesn't matter that so many people have experienced stuff like this. It's like they don't take that into account. That's always my sort of frustration, is like, well, I haven't experienced it. Well, you know, there's a lot of things you haven't experienced. You haven't been to Africa, but Africa exists.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, if you got somebody that you really want to convince, just get out of body and go to their room and move stuff around in their room, mess with them a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's an option. First, I have to get out of body, which I started listening to. It's called How to Have an Out of Body Experience by William Buhlman, right?
Right. Yeah.
Exercises and stuff, and of course, I've done like the gateway process recordings and stuff. But my problem's been that I haven't done it like as consistently as what you're talking about. So I'm going to do it consistently and see what happens, because I do really believe that there's more to this experience than just this physical world.
Yeah, man. Well, you have to learn how to relax and focus. And then the first thing that'll happen is you'll feel your body start to fall asleep and get paralyzed a little bit. And then, you'll get excited and you'll come out of that, right? Until you let your body get paralyzed. And then after that, you'll get to the vibratory state and you'll get excited and you'll come out of that until you are calm enough to let your body just fall asleep where you can't move it, and then let the vibratory state happen and then do it. You'll get there faster than you think if you just keep doing it, though. Did you already experience any like relaxation states that you haven't before or anything like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I have a problem relaxing myself, and so that's
probably
one of the main things to learn, right? It's so funny, man. It's like everything, so many things in life. I would say almost everything in life comes from being relaxed and not being in that state of stress, because nothing ever good comes out of a state of stress.
No, it doesn't.
No good decisions. No. It's only bad results. But every time you're relaxed, it's like you can do one thing and all of a sudden you get 100 times the results of, working your ass off when you're stressed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm trying to work on some meditations or guided meditations myself, right? A little bit more. I'm trying to work on to help people with that, not just do a radio show, but actually have something to offer with that. Because when I went to speak at the Contact with the Cabinet, the Magic event, I had everybody kind of laid out on the floor, right, in the dark, and I was guiding them through. I kind of mixed the astral realm and magic together and made what's called a path working thing, where I relax everybody and walk them through the visualizations. And I'll never forget, there's this really tall, like Brazilian guy. And he said, everybody, there was a few people going, come here, I got to talk to you, tell you what happened, but this guy, he was just like, couldn't believe what was going on. I'm like, tell me what happened. He said, well, I don't really believe in anything. I'm like, are you a nihilist or atheist? Or he said, well, I guess you could say I'm kind of an atheist, skeptic, He said, but about halfway through, I scratched my ear, He said, I scratched my ear, but I scratched my ear with my arm. I said, okay. He goes, but my arm was on my legs. So what did I scratch my ear with? And I said, well, that's your etheric, like your astral arm you scratched your ear with. Still wasn't sinking into him. He just kept asking like the same question. He's like, it doesn't make sense. So this was coming from someone that doesn't believe in anything, had an experience, and his mind cannot wrap his mind around it, So I bet you right now he's like doing these exercises, because I think that's what it takes, man. Once you get excited and you get obsessed about it a little bit and you focus on it, it'll happen. And sooner or later, you'll be in your backyard flying around or watching yourself sleep, and you'll be wanting to tell everybody about it. And people will think you're crazy like they do me,
I hope so. I'll text you when it happens.
All right, dude. That's cool. I can't wait.
Promote your show, but do you have anything else coming up? Obviously, you should listen to Fringe FM. It's amazing. There's apps for it that you can listen to live, but you can also get like recordings of it, right, on like Spotify and stuff.
Yeah, if you go to if you go to Fringe FM or Fringe.fm, that's the website. You can download our app, which is Fringe FM, where we have all the live radio shows. My show is called Lighting the Void, and that's pretty much, it's live on the Fringe FM at night, weeknights, but you can also download that podcast anywhere, anywhere podcasts are downloaded. So,
man, thank you so much. And hopefully we can talk again soon.
Yeah, brother.
All right.
Absolutely.